Today we're going to be doing something new on Guitar Gear One. This will be my very first appreciation post, and I thought who better to start with than a personal hero of mine, Mr. Paul Reed-Smith. So 5 years ago, I'm working for a guitar company called Cream City Music out of Wisconsin. They're actually a fairly big deal in the vintage game. And so I went there with one of the owners to sell and buy vintage gear on behalf of the business. And wasn't expecting a whole lot of cool stuff to happen. I mean, obviously, guitar shows are awesome. They're an awesome thing. Definitely go to them. We'll probably have footage and conversations about that on the channel as time goes on. But so our booth at that particular show was in like the back of a multi-100,000 square foot convention center, right? Like, it's my understanding that the Dallas Fort Worth show is the biggest in the country, and that's pretty easy for me to believe, having done it. So my boss and I are in the back of the convention center. I think it was a Sunday. Usually the guitar shows are Saturday and Sunday. Saturdays are heavily attended. A lot of times Sundays are not. So it was dead as disco, not going to lie to you. I mean, it was just people trickling through at that point. Sitting at this booth. My boss, man, he's not a friendly guy. He was one of those guys where you always wanted to look busy, even if you weren't, because you were scared. And so anyway, I'm sitting at this booth trying to kind of be productive in some meek way. And here's Paul Reed-Smith. He came down an aisle, he turns right in front of us, and he stops. And I noticed he was on his cell phone, and he was like trying to get a signal or hear somebody or whatever it was. But it was the most like humanizing first impression I could ever have had of Paul. I mean, he was like any other guy that was there. And I was watching him moving around, and it seemed like nobody had any idea who he was. And this stupid comment, like, I just imagined him being smaller. Like, I've been researching Paul since I was a kid. Like, I'm not kidding about that. Like, I've been following him forever, but never really saw him. You know, I guess against another person, this is stupid. But so there he was, bigger than life, right in front of me, 6, 7, 8 feet in front of me. And I look over at my boss, and I said, "Is that Paul?" And he looks at me like irritated, like he always does. And he goes, "Paul who?" And so I literally gave him like the phooey hands. And I'm like, oh my, okay, all right. I have to go say something. And I figured, and by the way, I'm going to be honest with you. I'd seen another interview with Paul on YouTube once, and he seemed short. He seemed like, let's get your question and you keep it moving, huh? So I was a little leery about bugging him in public, because that's what this is, man. I mean, this is a public show. Anybody could be there, right? So I was nervous as shit, man. And I creeped down, and at this point he had gone down several booths, and I really clearly remember this. He was in a larger booth. Nobody knew who he was, and he was casually looking at vintage mandolins. What would Paul Reed-Smith be shopping for? I don't know. Didn't expect that. So I came trucking up alongside of him, and I just basically, when he turned to me, I was just like, "Hi, Paul." Dude, I'm telling you, he in a first instant looked irritated. And then as soon as he saw my face and saw what was in my eyes, he just melted. And he's like, "Hi." It was just the nicest damn thing. And in a very short burst, I basically told him he's my hero. He's my hero. And what I want you guys to know is, here's why. So during an age of super strats, right, like the big space race for the most acrobatic and technically, able guitars that were ever conceived. This is like Kramer, Jackson, Hamer. They were trying to take existing platforms, Les Paul, Strats, Telecasters, Explorers, Vs, all this shit, and turn them into these fire-breathing power machines with Kahler tremolos and Floyd Rose and 24 frets, et cetera, burning fire along the fingerboards, or compound radius fingerboards. That's where we got those from. And here comes Paul, little Paul, and he had this idea. He saw what the Les Paul had to offer and the elegance of these finely crafted guitars, but the playability and the ergonomics of a Super Strat. And he combined it into the Custom 24. He built the motherfucker in his garage by hand, okay? Builds this thing by hand in his garage. And what does he do? This is the all-American story. Okay. These always make me feel good. I love success stories. Okay. So Paul takes his custom 24 that he made in his garage and he goes to a guitar show, just like the one that we were at. And the story goes, if I remember, he carried it in, no case or anything. He went walking around trying to find people that might want to invest in him. It's the everyman success story. I can't help but be moved by that kind of stuff, you know? So here I am, this young guy. I'd love to start my own guitar company. There's so many things I want to do, building guitars, not selling them. And here's my hero, man, at a guitar show. And it wasn't hard for me to imagine Paul when he was my age. You know, back then, this was like, I was probably 30 at the time or whatever. So since then, I've run into Paul a couple times in public. I always go say hi. I always get a picture with him. I can't help myself. So just you know, a quick cute story about him too. If you don't know this, an employee of PRS left. Okay, Nags, right? So there's a company called Nags Guitars. They're held in very, very high regard. Everybody I know that plays them loves them, which makes sense because why would you pay that much for something that you don't absolutely love? But I'll be honest with you, man. You know, so a personal friend of mine is a Nags dealer. He's invited me over to play a pile of them. I don't get it. I don't. I'm sorry. And I've bought and sold them on behalf of Cream City. And here's my punchline, my stupid Paul Reed Smith mention here. I ran into Paul in Philadelphia. We were at a show in Philadelphia, and I asked him if he would please come over to my booth and take a picture with me. Right, I always have to do that. So here's that picture. What you can't see from the photo is that I think it was an artist series like Semi Hollow, right? Paul Reed Smith and that Silver Burst, right next to a Nags on our booth, right? And so as he came up, like I jokingly like stood in front of the Nags and I'm like, oh no, there's nothing to see here, nothing to see. And he laughed. You know, he really, you know, it was a great smile I got out of him. But man, I wanted to break down why the Custom 24 was a life-changing guitar for me. So I did a review on this guitar a lot of years ago. You can certainly find that. You can watch that. It's got a lot of views on it, whatever. But man, I've had a lot more time to think, and I've grown a lot as a person. I've grown a lot as a player. I worked in the business now in the not so fun way. Like I've always dealt in guitars since I was a kid. My dad got me hooked on guitars when I was little as an investment. We're going to talk about that a lot on the channel, how to think about this gear, right? Which is really an extension of your bank account if you're doing it the right way. IMHO. So now that I've had to buy and sell a lot of guitars that I don't personally dig, that I don't like them, but they're extremely valuable and a lot of people really do like them, I've only come to appreciate Paul more. I've only come to appreciate the Custom 24 more over the years. And so I want to give you guys an updated hot take on why the Custom 24 is such a cool design, again, in my opinion, and why I think Paul is revolutionary. So thanks for coming by for our appreciation post. Stick around for the rest. Okay, so here we are with a real life Custom 24. And what I want to talk to you guys about is the reality of actually owning a guitar and committing to the platform. What do I mean by that? Well, I'd like to think of myself as a modern player. Okay, I don't just play in like E standard on a 6-string. I play 6-string guitars, 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars, and a variety of tunings across each. So on this channel, I'd like to be maybe one of the more diverse guys out there, and I'd like to kind of build our audience based on that. But I want to show you what actually happens when you need to do all these things, maybe even live. Okay, so we're starting out with a guitar. We have 11 to 52 gauge strings on it. They are Paul Reed Smith strings, but that's only because they're on sale. I'm not that much of a dick rider. But we're tuned a full step down, 11 to 52 gauge strings, and we are currently in quote-unquote standard tuning, okay, which would be D standard, right, because we're a step below E. So that sounds something like Real cool story, huh? You know this much. We can tune down to drop D, which in this case is going to be C because we're a full step down, by tuning to your fourth string, right? So we pretty easily get to there. We all know what this is about. But here's a really goofy one as well. So I believe this is, colloquially referred to as mastodon tuning. I've also heard it called drop A, which I think is incredibly misleading because that's definitely not really what it is. But we're going to go ahead and drop our lowest string all the way down to A. Where do you have an A? Well, it was your B string. Okay, so your second one from the bottom or the top. Before we tune it a full step down. So we're simply going to match these two strings together now. And now we're all the way down to that. But here's the deal. When you fuck with the tension that much on your guitar, bad things start to happen. Okay? And we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff later. But just remember, this guitar is not intonated and set up for these three different tunings. No way in hell. So we did it anyway. Okay? We're real people. How many, respectfully, $3,000 guitars do you own? Right? So if you kind of need a one trick or a one-stop shop, this is what happens. Okay, so here we are in mastodon tuning. That tuning never gets old to me, and I'm just playing slow and deliberately so you can just kind of hear it. But that's a nasty tuning to take advantage of while you're playing a 6-string guitar, and you want way more bottom end than you can traditionally get. So can this guitar do that? We just did. So let's come on up to that drop C. This is the part where the fuckery is revealed. Okay, so if you tune your guitar back up after having been so much lower and everything stays nice and solid, like how this one does, kind of cool, huh? So, point is still in tune. And for the last one, we're going to come all the way back up to quote unquote standard, which is D standard. I would never use a bridge position pickup like that to play blues. But the point is, it's dead nuts in tune everywhere. We went from a full step down to a drop tuning to a mega ultra drop tuning. This guitar is just not going to let you go live. It's not, okay? So I have Les Pauls. There's no sense to be made. Okay, there's a single tailpiece bridge system tuning machines, and you can't get them to stay in tune, dude. There's nothing to go wrong. There's just tuning machines, and they seem to hold solid, but the guitar pulls all over the place, especially when you're changing tunings. So if I was doing it all over again, if I was a young person, if I was considering different guitars, dude, old Paulie boy, he did you right. He really did you right. He did us all right. So just wanted to share a little background about me and Paul. Not that there's a me and Paul, but you know what I mean. There's a reason after all these years I still have this guitar. So thanks for coming by the page again. Hope you got a little something out of it. And if there's anything you want to see me do, tell me so, and I'll try. Thanks.